Okay, so we're going over the final exam study guide. You have 78 problems on the study guide. The final exam will be taken from those questions, regenerated values, and changed up a little bit, but this is your definite study guide to prepare for the final exam. It starts with Chapter 2 stuff. The first question is find the center and the radius of a circle in its expanded form. So we want to gather the x terms, x squared and the 8x, y squared and minus 10y. And probably the constant isn't the right number you need to complete the square, so I always just throw any constants over to the right side. And then we're completing the square for the x's and the y's. The reason I know I have to complete the square, and you all can relate this to what we did in Chapter 6 as well, is if you have an x squared and an x term, you have to somehow get that together so it's in parentheses, a quantity, a binomial square. So that's how you know you need completing the square. You can only complete the square if there's a 1 on the square term, so that is set that way. So you half the middle term, half of 8 is 4, 4 squared is 16. You can see that on your handout, fill in the blank, and the note that says you take 8 divided by 2, and then square that amount for the 16. Then that is guaranteed to factor into x plus, and you see the blank for that. X plus, it's always the square root of that number that you added, 4. Okay, so you can check that out. X plus 4 times x plus 4 would FOIL together. So those two are equivalents of each other. Same deal for the y's. You've got a y squared and a minus 10y. So again, the same process. You want to take 10 divided by 2, which is 5. Square that. The number that belongs in the blank is 25. That guarantees that that is now factorable. If you add in the correct number, it will always factor into the square root of the first term, the square root of the last term, and the middle sign. It's minus. Now you can't add 16 and 25 to one side without compensating on the other side, so we also add the 16 and the 25 to balance out the equation. Okay, so 8 and 16 is 24, and 25 is 49. Again, following along with your blanks, you need to fill that in. And then multiple choice from there. The center is change the sign to -4, +5. The last number represents the radius squared, so the radius would be 7. The formula you need for that, if I can write it, is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to the radius squared, where h and k represents the center and r represents the radius. That is the generic equation for a circle. Okay, so questions on that? Okay, the second question makes you do an extra step. It's similar to this in that you need this circle radius format, but you have to find your own distance with the distance formula. It says find the center and the radius form of an equation of a circle that has endpoints. The diameter, I think I left out a word there, but the diameter goes through at -5, 1, and 3, 7. So it's the diameter of a circle, the endpoint at -5, 1, and 3, 7, going through the center of the circle. Anyway, that would be enough information for us to figure out how big the radius is, because the distance of the diameter, if we half that, we would have our radius for the formula. Also, we could figure out the midpoint or the center of the circle by averaging the x's and averaging the y's. So it did incorporate some formulas you need to know for this problem. The midpoint formula, the middle of these 2 points would be add the x's, half it. That makes sense. You're averaging the x's. So -5 plus 3. Thought I wrote that down, but I didn't. Oh, no, I didn't. -5 plus 3 divided by 2, and then add the y's. 1 plus 7 divided by 2. And the parentheses really didn't need to do that. That would be -2 over 2 or -1. 1 and 7 is 8. 8 over 2, which is 4. So the center of the circle would be at the middle or the midpoint of that segment that was given. All Then we need to know the radius to use our formula. The radius, I'm going to figure out the distance of the diameter and then half it. So the distance formula from here to here would be subtract the x's squared plus subtract the y squared and then square root that answer, the distance formula. So I did 3 minus negative 5, which is 8. 8 squared, 64. And then subtract the y's. 7 minus 1, which is 6. 6 squared, 36. 64 and 36 is 100. The square root of 100, which is 10. So that's the diameter. Remember, that was the distance from here to here. So I'm halving that distance to find the radius, which is 5. So then the formula for the center and radius of a circle, remember, looks like this. So we fill in our h and k values, which is our centering. The negative signs in the formula kind of change the sign of our centering, so it makes it plus 1 because of a negative sign and a negative on that, it becomes plus 1 squared. And then y minus, this is the k value, 4 squared equals the radius, which is 5 squared, or just 25. So some definite formulas to make note of that you do need to memorize if you haven't already.